all these things are against me. Amen. Anybody ever feel like all these things are against me? You have a dream, you have a vision, there's things you're trying to accomplish, things you're trying to walk through, get past, want to be delivered from, stuff you want to accomplish, goals that you had, but all these things are against me. Sometimes it's past stuff, sometimes it's present things, sometimes it's things that we need, that we believe that we have to have in order to accomplish these things, to move forward, to move up, to get what it is that we desire, to get away from some things. It seems like it's some things that we want to aim for, but it seems like all of these things are against me. Sometimes it's people, sometimes it's places, sometimes it's habits, sometimes it's some hurt, some unforgiveness, some past issues, some past pain, some lack of resources, some lack of education, it's a ton of things that we can always come up with, like Moses did, that I can't go because what if they don't, and what if they don't believe me, and they don't know who I am, and who will I say sent me, and I can't talk well. I have all these things against me. And Jacob here, if we don't know the story, Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Jacob is the father of the 12 sons who became the nation of Israel, the children of Israel, the chosen people of God. If we're familiar with the story, we know that this story tells us about Joseph, who was Jacob's favorite son. He was the son of Jacob's favorite wife. Jacob had two wives, Rachel and Leah, and he loved Leah. And he wasn't too fond, he loved Rachel and he wasn't too fond of Leah. But Leah had kid after kid after kid, and Rachel just had two. She had Joseph and Benjamin. And Joseph was Jacob's favorite. And he let his other kids know that Joseph was his favorite. He even gave Joseph a coat of many colors because Joseph was Jacob's favorite. And his brothers were jealous of Joseph, and they plotted to kill him, and they threw him in a pit, and then they sold him into slavery, and then he ended up in Egypt, and then he was serving over in Egypt, and then he was doing well serving in Potiphar's house, and Potiphar trusted him, and he had favor in that house, even though he was away from his family and away from his familiar land and all of those things. He was in a foreign land with foreign people in slavery, and his father thought he was dead. And he's serving Potiphar, and he's faithful, and Potiphar trusts him, and then Potiphar's wife lied on him and accused him of trying to seduce her, and Joseph ended up in prison, and then he was in prison, and he had favor in prison, and God elevated him into prison, and then he was forgotten about in the prison. He had all these things against him. But God is so good and God is so awesome that he takes those things that are against us because they're stepping stones for where he's trying to lead us. Does anybody know that? Joseph had all these things against him. He was a favorite son, but his brothers made his father think that he was dead. They tried to kill him. He was sold into slavery. He was lied on. He was wrongfully in prison. He was forgot about there. But then he got elevated. He got promoted. And he ended up being right under the king of Egypt. He had power and authority and control. And there was a famine in the land. There was no food. All over the earth, all over, there was a lack, there was a need, and Joseph was in control of distributing the grain, the food. He was in control, the one that for 13 years, from the age of 17 to 30, he was going through something. He had all these things against him. One thing after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. And at some point, Sometimes we quit and say, I have all these things against me. I didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes we did do something wrong. But we have all these things against us. But now he's promoted, and there's hunger in the land. And his father and his brothers are in Canaan, and they need some food. So the Bible tells us that their father told the boys, what you doing just sitting around here? Go to Egypt and get us some food. Now, they don't know that Joseph is still alive. They don't know that Joseph has a place of position. They don't know that Joseph went from the pit to the palace. They don't know that Joseph's issues got him a promotion. They don't know that. They just know that Dad told us to go get some food. So they go to Egypt. And they see Joseph, and Joseph recognizes his brothers, but his brothers don't recognize him. So they bow down because they need some food. And Joseph recognizes them, and he starts giving them a hard time. He tells them, you're spies. They said, we're not spies. We're sons of our father. There's 12 of us, but one of us is missing. Well, one of us is no more. One of us is gone. And then the youngest one, he's at home with our father, but we're not spies. He said, just spies. He said, just spies. We're going to give you something to eat, but you're going to leave one of your brothers here. Because first he locked them up for 3 days, and then he said, if you want to leave, I'll give you some food. Take it back to your hungry family, but you leave one of your brothers here, and you go home and you get that youngest brother, and you bring him back, and I'll let you all go. This was trouble. You ever did something and then you see something happening to you and you think, oh, I'm getting paid back for what I did. They said, oh, we're getting paid back for what we did to Joseph. And they're talking in front of Joseph, but they don't know who Joseph is. And they go, you remember what we did to Joseph? And then the brother Reuben was like, yeah, I told y'all not to do that to Joseph. Amen. But Joseph knew what they were talking about. So they said, he gave them some food, and they began on their way back home. They left their brother Simeon there. So now they're on their way home, and they look in their bag, and they find out we got food and we got our money back. And they're scared because they're trying to figure out, how did the money get back in our bags? We paid for this food. They think it's a setup so that they'll be accused of stealing. So when they get home, they tell their father, look, he kept Simeon, he thinks we're spies, and they told us to bring Benjamin back, or we ain't going to get Simeon back, and we ain't going to get no food, we going to die. And his father said, I'm already missing Joseph. Now Benjamin, the youngest one that stayed home with the father, that's Joseph's brother. They're the only two that were born by Rachel. Those are the two. He said, you can't take Benjamin. You can't take Benjamin because Joseph's already gone. Now you then left Simeon there. Now you're going to take Benjamin, who's the only other son that I have by Rachel. You can't have him. He said, if you take him, and all these things are against me. He's not feeling too good. Now, let's consider who Jacob is. If you know the story, you remember Jacob tricked his brother out of his birthright. He was kind of cunning in the day. He old now. We cut up when we're young. We get older and then we just a little humble. Everything is against me. Amen. But he was all that when he was younger. Yeah, you want some stew? Give me your birthright. Then he went up in his father's room when his father was dying and pretended like he was his brother. Yeah, give me the blessing. He had tricked his brother out of everything. He was bad then. He was all of that. Then he went out and he was pressing for stuff that he wanted. He went and found Rachel, told Rachel's father, I want her. I worked 7 years for her. And then Laban tricked him. He worked 7 years for Rachel, and then he got married, woke up the next morning, found